Consider for a moment the past 2 years in Cecily Strong's career. For her work on SNL, she was nominated for an Emmy in 2020 and 2021. Last July, she starred in the Apple TV Plus musical comedy Schmigadoon. And the following month, she released her first book, a memoir titled This Will All Be Over Soon. And now in 2022, she's making her New York theater debut. Strong is starring in the new staging of the classic one-woman show, The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe. It was written in 1985 by Jane Wagner and performed originally by her now wife, Lily Tomlin. Those are big shoes to fill, and a lot of shoes to fill, given the show has 10 characters. But you know who's really good at character work? Cecily Strong, who's performed for 10 seasons doing live television comedy. The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe is a commentary on feminism and the challenges of modern womanhood, as told by our guide, a woman named Trudy, a woman society has deemed, in her words, quote, crazy. She is experiencing homelessness and is convinced she can talk to aliens as well as channel the lives of people across space and time. Who says she can't? When Trudy taps into these characters, she is them, telling their stories through their eyes as they navigate the pressures of marriage, motherhood, and modern society. It's an impressive theater debut for Strong, who puts all of her considerable talents into this performance. The New Yorker says, quote, Strong is a worthy successor to Tomlin, infusing every obnoxious character with a warm, beguiling core. The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life is running at the Shed through February 6th, and Cecily Strong joins me via Zoom. Hi, Cecily.
Hi. I apologize for any weird audio thing. What else is new?
Exactly.
I've somehow ruined all technology around me.
It's a good club. It's a club many of us are in. No worries. We have a very understanding audience. So
Thank you.
The play was written in 85. I hope I'm not giving away state secrets. You were born in 84. So when did you first encounter it?
My first encounter was just the published book version in my local town library as a kid looking for monologues or something. And I just remembered this cover of the book with, Lily Tomlin's big giant smile and this crazy name. So of course I checked it out and only understood probably 15% of it because Jane, I think it is something you really have to see live. And I think, and having Lee Silverman walk me through it was very helpful. I probably now understand about 85% of it. I wish I could have seen Lily do it live. I've seen the movie tons, but it's been cool hearing her talk about performing it and Jane writing it with her. And so I'm taking all the anecdotes I can get too.
So the story goes, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you know the internet, that you were somebody reached out to you because they saw you on the season finale of SNL. I think it was last year, when you literally, as Judge Jean Pirro, who apparently likes some wine, at least your version of her does, and you climbed.
My version does, yeah.
Wink, wink. And you climbed into a giant vat of wine, fully dressed. Is that true that was the catalyst?
That's what I've heard. Lee Silverman, who's sort of the reason we're all doing the show, really, and Bill Damashki, a producer, but Lee is really why Jane and Lily are on board and why I'm here. But yes, I found out it was, she saw me in the box of wine and went, well, that person is nuts enough to do this, I think.
But also, it's just so physical. It's just so physical. This role,
yes.
Doing that is so physical. And it's, I actually thought for a minute, should we even be talking to Cecily? She should be sleeping. After watching you, there's no reason you should be awake now. You should be resting. People should be bringing you food
if I
on
could
platters.
sleep, I would.
How are you? I mean, this is actually, I was going to ask it later, but how are you taking care of yourself? Because you're on stage by yourself, performing all of those characters at such a heightened sort of emotional level.
Yes. Gosh, I'm still figuring it out. We just ended tech really last week. So I finally have my free days. So I'm trying to I do Peloton poorly, but I try. and I have my wine and my very low THC cannabis to help me sleep. And I've got my dog, and I'm living like a monk basically to try to make sure those tests come back negative so I can perform.
How did you, I mean, this is a nuts and bolts question. How do you go about memorizing an hour and a half of dialogue with so many different characters?
It was the hardest I've ever worked. And I think for the biggest payoff, doing this show it feels incredible. But I'm really a person that likes puzzles and, word games and number games. And this really felt like the biggest puzzle I've ever taken on. Just so many different parts of my brain at once. Really, I've been eating, sleeping, just Jane Wagner's been in my head. I'm walking around, even with a mask. I think I'm still getting looks from people because even if they can't see my mouth move, they see me talking to myself. So I've just spent a lot of time talking to myself, talking to my dog. And somehow I think I'm pretty close to feeling like I know it.
Mm-hmm. My guest is Cecily Strong. We're talking about the search for signs of intelligent life in the universe. She's performing it at the Shed through February 6th. We've mentioned Lee Silverman, the director, a couple of times, but you also got to speak with Jane Wagner and Lily Tomlin. What's a piece of advice they gave you, something they said that really informs the work you're doing?
We did a Zoom interview with them, and that's really the longest I'd gotten to kind of sit down with them. And just hearing the way they talked about writing it and how they are so genuinely funny and lovely. And we got off the interview and Lee and I both turned to each other and just sobbed. Really, the best thing ever is that they're trusting us with this. It means so much. It's such an honor. And, with Lily, it was like, I'm certainly not trying to step into her shoes, because who can be Lily Tomlin? It's more that I think that Jane's text is so relevant and so beautiful and funny and surprising. And so I'm just doing my version of that. But I think I just enjoyed hearing them even talking about the steps they took in writing the show and knowing, oh, Lily didn't take the hat as Kate. She didn't feel that Kate would have taken the umbrella hat in this moment, which is now I'm getting into very nuts and bolts, but it's so cool to hear things like that. And really just having them involved and knowing that they're there is incredibly special and makes it, I feel a sense of wanting to do them proud every single night.
So Cecily, you're often playing 3 different characters in the same scene and you're jumping between them constantly. So for our listeners, I'm going to play a clip from the show. And this is a scene that takes place at a bar. It's a conversation between these 3 friends, Edie, Marge, and Lynn. This is you people follow, focus. This is you starting the conversation as Marge, reacting to Edie's underarm hair. And throughout the clip, we'll hear the distinct voices of these 3 different characters. This is Cecily Strong from The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe.
Oh, what is that? Spanish moss? Edie, hair under the arms? You're probably on some FBI list of the politically dangerous. How did you even manage that much growth? Women's movement isn't that old. I am proud I've never been enslaved to the tyranny of fashion trends, like you, Marge. Well, unless you could call camouflage fatigues and political rhetoric boycotts of the men fashion trends. Marge, your problem is your role models were models. Well, Edie, I mean, you and I should only have Marge's taste. Except when it comes to men. Women's lib stands for liberation, not libido. What good is it, Marge, to have sexual freedom if you become a victim to it? Sis, you got hetero damage from those women's magazines. Well, I mean, at least Marge has figured out from those magazines what shaped face she has, Edie. Something I've never been sure of. Oh, so she can apply makeup to overcome flaws? Yeah, that's what these consciousness-raising self-exams are all about, right? Oh, yeah. I look at myself. I don't see any flaws.
That was Cecily Strong. How did you and Lee Silverman work, and the choreographer, to figure out the best ways to differentiate between the people and the settings and the voices?
Yeah, that's so funny. I just have to say, I'd never had this experience before of listening to it. I remember my dresser says sometimes he's listening to the monitor and he'll go, "It sounds like there's a scene going on with three people. I forget it's just you." I think for me, I'm still, I've only really had since November 22nd full time with this. So I'm still sort of learning, but Lee is, I think every actor who's ever worked with her has said she's made them, 10 at least times better. She's been really good with specificity, especially, I had no idea doing it. It's some of the show, I'm talking to a person who's in one spot who doesn't move. And then, some of the show, I'm playing three different people talking to each other. So even like, what's the geography of that? Mm-hmm. Who's on what side of, so you're here and you're here when I'm Lynn, when I'm Edie, whatever. It was like, what a mind F to go through. But I think, and it was my, I wanted to, it's instinctually, I approach it like a little kid where I'm like, well, let me run over here. And that's I'm this person. Then I run over here. And that's how I'm this person. And Lee was very adamant that, no, you can do it while still, even if it's just as simple as, this is where I stand. I've got a cigarette. I know immediately I've got the cigarette from Marge. I've got the pool cue. Even you starting with something as simple as that is helpful, just to know where I'm going and who I am, who I'm talking to. But yes, that's the day we started blocking that scene, that was one of those days where I went, oh, I'm not going to get this. I'm never going to get this.
My guest is Cecily Strong. We're talking about the search for signs of intelligent life in the universe. It's at the Shed through February 6th. So Trudy's at the heart of the show. She's our guide. She's experiencing homelessness. She believes she can communicate with aliens. She makes a lot of sense sometimes.
Yeah.
She really, really does. She starts the show and she starts ruminating about the word crazy. And that's one of those words that over time, as we've all sort of become more thoughtful, it's a hard word to hear, or we think about it in a different way. How did you think about that word? How did you and Lee talk about the idea of people experiencing homelessness within this play now? Because we think about it rightfully in different ways.
Yeah. I think, well, for me, number one, the fact that it's just saying crazy, I feel like, is kind of helpful in that it's not a specific, not pointing to any kind of specific mental illness or, and I guess also because I come from a lot of mental illness in my own family and in myself. And so there's something freeing to just saying, I'm crazy. I don't know. And having me say it and not someone using it as a weapon against me. And I think, we use it in a very loving way towards Trudy as well. And in her sense, I think she's a performer and she enjoys it. And in our version, it's sort of, she's been squatting at the Shed, which I also liked that idea of. And it was during the pandemic, and everything that's in her cart was sort of things that were just left in offices when people had to leave their offices in March 2020. And so there's something I think that's very special about that. And because Trudy, she's homeless, but she's homeless in so many ways in that she's not even of a time really, which is, I think, when she becomes more of a kind of a magical figure, then it's a bit easier, and then it doesn't feel like I'm romanticizing the real idea of being homeless. And it's more this woman who's traveling between times, spaces, and enjoys sharing with who she's sharing with, and loves to learn. I mean, I think Trudy's brilliant and funny and sweet. So, and to me, all of the characters are real, and the space chums are real. And so it's also somebody who's not alone, and makes everybody coming into the theater, it's her goal to make sure they don't feel alone.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of Trudy. This is Trudy explaining how she became, quote unquote, crazy.
I was not always a squatter in an empty theater, Oh, yeah. I used to be a designer and creative consultant for big companies. I was quite the influencer in my day. Laugh tracks. I gave TV sitcom producers the idea for canned laughter. Got the idea one day, I heard voices and no one was there. Oh, well, who do you think had the idea to package pantyhose in a plastic goose egg? I told my space chums what drove me crazy was my last creative consultant job with the Ritz cracker mogul, Mr. Nabisco. Yeah, so it was my idea to come up with snack inspirations to increase sales. I got this idea to give cracker consciousness to the entire planet. I said, Mr. Nabisco, sir, you could be the first to sell the concept of munching to the third world. We got an untapped market here. Why, these countries got millions of people, don't even know where their next meal is coming from. So the idea of eating between meals is just something never occurred to them. I heard myself saying this, something so insensitive, so cruel. I must have blanked out, and I went stark raving mad. Well, too much guilt can drive you mad.
That was Cecily Strong from The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe at the Shed until February 6th. So there's this really interesting sound design in this show, Cecily. In a show where it's very stark on the stage and the costume changes are minimal, but the sound, there's things like a can opening, a backpack unzipping. What went into that decision?
Well, I think that is probably where we are the most faithful in trying to replicate the original production. And it was also, I believe, the sound designer for the show in 1985 was a woman as well. And I think that was part of it with Lee too, is like, this is a woman writing this, a woman star and a woman sound designer, which was like unheard of in 1985. And so our design team now is all female as well, which I really love. But yes, it's been crazy. My stage manager, Justin, and I always joke that we're dancing with each other. He's got 3 monitors up watching me. So we're trying to, I'm trying to feel and act, but also hit these words that I know he needs for these specific zipper pulls and opening of a compact. So there's another thing that was another puzzle, another challenge where I'm trying to learn the lines, but I'm also trying to remember how it feels to dial a payphone, Where is the payphone? It's so interesting. It's crazy. And I use that in a Cecily crazy way too.
It's interesting to watch the show and to hear and experience all the different feelings that these characters have around being women and around feminism. And I think it's happening at an interesting time for fans of yours, because for anybody who watched you on SNL, you gave a performance. I'm not going to say it was a skit. It was a performance that I think will be one of those that is watched for years to come. If people haven't seen it, it's a performance where you play a clown, Goober the Clown, and Goober the Clown is talking about abortion. And it is just that line of comedy and pain and truth. I don't even know if there's a question here. It's how, I guess the question is, how do you, Cecily, think about those lines of comedy and pain and truth? Because there are those moments in the show, and it is definitely the entirety of that sketch.
Yes. I mean, I think it was really important for me. It was, I have a lot bottled up inside that was sort of like, I'm either going to just write these ranty sort of essays all night, or I want to get this out. I want to find, why has it been so hard to figure out how to talk about this? And I've got this platform that I do. And I remembered sort of talking to people throughout the week and trying to explain it and saying, well, so I have this idea, and maybe I'm a clown talking about my abortion. Everyone was like, okay. It's hard to explain until people really see it. But the show was so supportive immediately and on board. And it was really, I was moved by the reaction. I was really not knowing what to expect. I was a receptionist at Planned Parenthood in Chicago in 2007 to 2009, and I worked in the billing department. And so, but I opened mail and I saw a lot of the hate directed that way, and so knew what I was opening myself up to in that way. But I think it's good to sort of humanize it. And there were so many women that wrote to me who said, I'll never be able to tell anyone else. And I can tell you, and I appreciate that. And I think with this show, especially, anyone who has said, oh, this doesn't feel, who asks about the relevance. And it's like, they were already 12 years past Roe v. Wade, in 1985. They're talking about the Equal Rights Amendment. That's like, we're back. This is 1973. Roe v. Wade is passed, and it's 2022 now. And that's where we are. And even, when I'm yelling equal rights, equal pay, I mean, that's me yelling that. I feel very much these fights are still today. And the idea of wanting to change the world, it was very much, that's all, I think, a lot of us in our 20s. And the reality of how do you deal with maybe that you can't change the world? And how do we live with that and celebrate what we have done and what we have in our lives? And I find all of that so incredibly relevant. And there's no question for me. To be a woman yelling equal rights, equal pay, that you're not past that equality fight. I mean, no way.
The name of the show is The Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe. It is at the Shed through February 6th. Cecily Strong, it was nice to meet you, and thank you so much.
It's lovely to meet you. Thank you.